.NET Conf Recap with Jeff Fritz.
The Azure DevOps Podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Each show brings you hard-hitting interviews with industry experts, innovating better methods, and sharing success stories. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your host for helping you and your teams move fast and deliver quality and run your software with confidence in Azure, all while using everything that the .NET ecosystem has to offer. The podcast is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a software engineering firm serving companies that are struggling with past failures of business-critical software projects, and they really deliver, establishing high quality, achieving rock-solid stability, and moving at the speed of your business. So when failure is not an option, ClearMeasure actually guarantees your project will succeed. And you can find them at clearmeasure.com. Quick announcement, my architect forums are going strong. We just finished the first year of monthly architect forums, and signups for the next session are up. And some great lead architects have been a part of those forums. And if you lead a software team, and if you're looking to collaborate with other peers, other peer software architect leaders, just sign up at the link in the show notes. And of course, for those looking for Programming with Palermo, my video podcast, you can just search for those in any of the podcast or video directories and you'll be able to find it. Now, my guest today on the show, returning back, Jeff Fritz. He's been on the show a couple times now, and he's an experienced leader and technical educator, and he's a PM on the .NET team at Microsoft, instrumental in .NET Conf, and he founded the Live Coders team on Twitch. He regularly live streams builds of websites and fun applications. You can watch him there, and you can also follow Jeff for more .NET Core, and Visual Studio content on Twitter and Twitch, all at C# Fritz. That's CSHARP And back from episode 222 in December 5th of 2022, back for another round. Jeff, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm a glutton for punishment. Come on back and let's go. Let's talk some more here. It's always a pleasure.
Well, you are pumping out so much content and so many avenues. That's crazy. We can't keep up.
Oh, thank you. It's kind of part of the job. It's also kind of part of like my life mission. Can I say that?
You love doing it.
I do enjoy teaching folks. I do enjoy seeing folks make that click, that understanding that, oh my gosh, this solves a problem. This is going to make my job, my task, my project I'm working on so much easier. So it's something that I really enjoy doing, and I'm going to continue doing.
Yeah. Well, you were instrumental in making .NET Conf happen. I mean, I want some things behind the scenes. I want to ask you about that. Sure. And there's tons of people who follow you and have learned a lot from you. But for those, of course, who are saying, Jeff Fritz, oh, wow, I should pay attention. Wow, he's got this over here. That's great. For those of you who are the listeners who are learning about you for the first time, let's back up, a little bit. And how did you end up being basically a almost full-time teacher or facilitator? I'm calling it my layman's term, a facilitator of teaching. Whereas, you're a programmer, but now you love helping other programmers learn. How did you make that shift? And when did you discover, it's like, you know what? Let me do this. This is awesome. I could code all day, or I could code most of the day. Ooh, I could teach people coding.
It was a cold winter day in 1984, and
when you were born.
and my mother was truthfully, my mother was a school teacher, and it's kind of in my blood, right? To be able to help other folks and teach, and coding and building applications was something I was so interested in the late 90s and early 2000s, and worked with a number of different companies, startups, large enterprises, medium-sized companies, consulting firms, and I got to a point where I started leading teams, and while I was enjoying writing code, it was the mentorship and helping the younger developers and getting more out of them
Mm-hmm.
that I was starting to enjoy more and more. I would go and speak at user groups just in the local area, and I really started enjoying that. I got an opportunity to speak just outside of my area, and I took a day off from work, a personal day, to go and travel to Vermont and speak at our friend Julie's
Mm.
user group up
Julie
there.
Lerman.
And the folks at the place I worked were none too happy that I did that. I said, well, I took a day off of work. It was my vacation time. What I do with that is my business. And they got all upset and started using terms like intellectual property and whatnot. I'm like, I'm not teaching intellectual property. I'm regurgitating and teaching folks better what's in the documentation on these websites.
Mm-hmm.
And that put a lid on it for a while, but I had an opportunity to move on and join another company where I could be that developer advocate because I was picking up and speaking at more places, and I hooked on with Telerik, and getting paid to go and speak and write blog posts got me noticed by Microsoft, and the rest is history.
Mm.
So it's a wonderful journey that I've been on. I'm blessed to be able to do that because there aren't many folks who get the opportunity to deliver and be an advocate at this level for one of the largest
Mm-hmm.
software companies in the world. Like, there's a lot of folks that do developer advocacy and that do developer education, but to have the resources and access that we have is quite unique, and I'm happy to have that and be able to share that and bring that content to the world.
Yeah, nice. Well, speaking of reach, the .NET Conf 2023 edition, just what, as the time of recording, right about a month since that happened, and the release of .NET 8 and the latest version of Visual Studio. And what was your role in .NET Conf this year?
I don't want to say that I'm bragging about it, but I am the executive producer for the event. I am right. The buck stops here. I lead a team of 12 different work streams, and there's 10, 11 folks that work on those different work streams to manage all the various facets of the event. And I'm I'm fortunate to have a fantastic team that works with me on that, and they have their own folks that they lead and work with to deliver all the various components that you see as part of not just the online event, but also the promotion, the customer interaction videos that you see as part of it, the sponsors that are promoting and talking about it, including Clear Measure this year. And we also have all kinds of local events that are managed and facilitated by folks on our team. It's a big lift that the .NET team does every year, and to be able to bring all of that content in a portable way to folks so that anybody anywhere can consume it, can learn about it, can can take advantage of all these great tools that the .NET team, the Visual Studio team, the Azure team, that all the folks at Microsoft have put together. It's so energizing for me to be able to deliver that. And I tell the .NET team and Visual Studio teams, I tell them, look, this is your showtime. This is where we're going to celebrate your achievements,
Mm-hmm.
and to take that first day or so and really show off. Here's all the cool new things that they've built and released. They enjoy that, having that time dedicated to them, take their time and go through, and then to facilitate and bring in the community and have 48 dedicated sessions where let's just talk about all the cool things that we've learned and that we can do and that we've extended and done more with .NET. I love it as a celebration of all things .NET for our programmers. It really is programmer to programmer discussions.
Yeah, for sure. So how long does it take? When did you start actually preparing, or when did you build the .NET Conf 2023 team?
There were discussions that started as early as November 2022.
Okay, a year-long affair.
Now, we're in initial discussions and planning and lead time, just organization, making sure that we understand the topics and features that are coming in the version of .NET that we're going to be delivering, making sure we understand them and planning and making sure that we're going to be in line with the product team. And then there's other logistical things that happen, and we really hit the ground running in April, May. And then we go full time with weekly meetings in the July, August timeframe. So right when you see the call for content go out for .NET Conf, we're in weekly meetings at that point. So it's a good solid 4-5 months that we're in weekly meetings working on all the various components of it.
Gotcha. Now, did you know all of the announcements or the things that you wanted to push ahead of time, or did you have to wait to see what was actually going to be ready come November time?
We had a pretty good idea of everything that we wanted to announce. In August, as we're going through and doing the content planning, we had concerns because some of the products were not coming in quite as quickly as we expected.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a story for somebody on the product team to go through and discuss. But exactly, these things always happen. There's a change in vision. There might be different issues that come up. There might be conflicts and different things that aren't going to work quite right, or compatibility issues. But there were some challenges with what we were looking at planning on for content in August, and we put an abstract box around them and said, okay, if this thing doesn't come through, we've at least got decent content to cover that topic.
Mm-hmm.
And from a product team perspective, it's good to have that fallback, but at the same time, there's big features that they wanted to deliver, and I'm happy to say they successfully delivered all the things they wanted to announce and talk about. And from the response from the event, folks are happy about them too.
Well, tell us about the response. What do you see? How do you measure it? What does it look like for you?
So we get a really big yardstick. No, there's so of course we're watching viewer numbers. We're watching the viewer count coming back and forth during the event. We're watching the number of downloads of the product. And I shared at the closing of the event, in the closing minutes, we had a record-breaking number of concurrent viewers. We had a record-breaking number of live viewers. We had a record-breaking number of total live views. Just amazing numbers.
What were those records?
I can't go into that.
Okay, so a lot.
I can't quite share that, but I can say it was a lot. We had a record-breaking number of downloads of the product during the event. So, like the event is the .NET Conf event is about sharing and promoting. Here's all the cool things about .NET 8, and go check it out, download it. And we had a record-breaking number of downloads. So it helps that there were some great features in there. And those at the one end are the physical numbers that we can point to and say, yes, those are really big things that we delivered and we accomplished. We did more than double the number of local events than we've ever scheduled in the past. More than 200 local events were scheduled where there's influencers, there's user groups that are going to be taking some of that .NET 8 launch content, talking about it, and having a good time educating and getting folks in the local geographies all up to speed on that stuff. We saw a tremendous influx of chatter, of messages, whether it was on Twitter, Mastodon, Twitch chat. We even had questions being submitted on the website this year, and the sentiment coming in from those was overwhelmingly positive. I don't have exact numbers on the sentiment analysis, but we were very happy with those interactions, and we think that the approach that we take to make .NET Conf so interactive, so responsive to questions, where presenters aren't just giving it, they're not just giving a talk and giving a TV show presentation. They're talking and answering questions after their session. We think that's very important and sets .NET Conf apart. And we want to figure out how we can take advantage of that and make it feel even more welcoming and inclusive for the next series of .NET Conf events.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting concept. Whereas there's been, past tech ed, Ignite and Build, where I think the largest one I remember was 16,000 people at the convention center in Orlando, that massive place. And then Build is what? Is a little bit less than 10,000. That kind of paired. But this massive conferences, how does .NET Conf compare to those in-person conferences where you basically say, look, we can take this many thousands of people and then the tickets are sold out. We just can't take any more. Yep. I mean, .NET Conf invariably is much larger because of the worldwide audience, no cap on that. But does it just blow those conferences out of the water?
I can't speak specifically to that. I can tell you that I have had conversations with some of our marketing friends at Microsoft who do manage some of those events about how this is part of the same story, and what we can do to improve that story and make it a better experience for everybody, whether they're in person at a Build event. This past year we had it in Seattle, or in person at an Ignite event in Seattle like we did this past year. But to your point, in previous years at the massive Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, or Chicago, or Houston, wherever it might be, New Orleans. Amazing events. And how they compare really is when you're at those in-person events, you have various booths that you can go to when you're done the session. You know what? I really need to talk to folks on this team. I want to talk to folks who work on this type of product, or I need help learning more about that. Let me see if there's somebody in the sponsor area that can help out with X, Y, or Z, whatever that technology or question is, and actually close some business opportunities coming out of that. .NET Conf doesn't do that. .NET Conf is more of that open-ended broadcast on YouTube, on Twitch. Everybody's got YouTube on their TV now in 2023, 2024. Whether it's a Fire Stick, a Roku, your Xbox, you've got YouTube on your TV. And if you don't, you've got it on your phone. So everybody everywhere can watch .NET Conf. And that's something that we take to heart. There is no ticket. There is no registration. There is no entry fee. There is no requirement for somebody to know a certain thing before they can tune in. No, I don't care where you are. Doesn't matter. You're welcome to join us. Dial us up, youtube.com/.net, and you're going to find folks from the team broadcasting and talking about all the cool things. So where Build and Ignite are very gated to folks that you have to be on the ground, you have to be in the United States. This year, both were in Seattle. You have to be able to get to Seattle. Well, there are some folks that, for various reasons, they just can't.
Yeah.
And as much as they want to make those events inclusive, they'll just stick a camera in the back of the room and they'll show you what everybody sees in the front of the room, and that's it. Okay. You're certainly getting the content, and the recordings are available out there on the Microsoft YouTube channels, and that's great. You can still get to that. The features of an event that make it so valuable to attend in person are not extended to you outside of the venue if you do not have a ticket, if you are not registered and attend those events. And I take a little bit of pride in breaking that mold and making those connections available to folks.
Yeah, that's true, because you had some of the speakers staying after to answer questions, or not just the speaker, but people on the speaker's team answering questions at a live event. that speaker has to walk with their legs maybe to a spot where they can take in-person questions, and you're just not going to have the in-person plus virtual dynamic mashed together. It's just not feasible.
Yeah. The team at Build tried to do it with a discussion model session and didn't quite work out the way they wanted to. They tried to do a little bit more at Ignite and still not quite there. We'll see what they have up there in their plans for next year, but we've got some additional ways that we're going to light up and do more with interactivity this coming year. I mean, we used to be, for .NET Conf, we were coupled to Twitter. You had to post a message on Twitter, had to get it into the mix.
Yep.
And then somebody would respond to it. Well, this year, folks aren't as fond of Twitter, so we opened it up to Twitter, Mastodon, a forum on the website, and Twitch chat. And it worked out very, very well.
Many thanks to our podcast sponsor, ClearMeasure. ClearMeasure is a software architecture company that empowers clients' development teams to be self-sufficient, moving fast, delivering quality, and running their systems with confidence. Whether starting a new project or developing new technologies or techniques, ClearMeasure sets up your team to deliver world-class results. Learn more at www.clearmeasure.com. ClearMeasure, empowering software delivery. ClearMeasure is also happy to be a sponsor of the video podcast, Programming with Palermo. Watch, learn, and program alongside Chief Architect Jeffrey Palermo. Videos are added weekly and available on syndicated locations supporting video podcast or by visiting palermo.network. Tune in today.
So to recap, what are the big announcements from .NET Conf? There's way too much. You have hours of content, but what are the big things that people should definitely not miss?
New version of C#. I always got to call back to that because there's always great new things in the programming language. And as C# developers, got to check that out. Big updates to Blazor, right? Now we're going from 2 rendering models of WebAssembly and server to now 5, including static hosting, stream rendering, server-side interactivity, client-side interactivity, and automatic interactivity. So huge impact that's been made there that really takes that hybrid model of building and executing code in the browser and just turbocharges it to a level that nobody has ever seen. And of course, we've got to touch on the preview announcement, the one more thing that we added in the keynote, and that was .NET Aspire, the opinionated cloud-native framework that's being delivered, that's being worked on to just make building distributed applications in the cloud so much easier. So we're pretty excited about what we can do with Aspire in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And do you keep account how many hours of deep dive recorded content did .NET Conf produce? There were multiple tracks.
There's 40 hours that we broadcast. And we had it was roughly another 10 hours of recorded content that we aired at the same time on day 3, as well as we made available on YouTube. So we're in at a good 55 hours of content, more than 110 sessions that we've got available out there on the .NET Conf playlist on the YouTube channel.
There were a few sessions that popped out in this theme, but one of them, I think I remember the title, and I think it was intro to web applications for .NET for experts. I thought, ooh,
yes,
that was a real interesting way to do it. Okay, I'm already an expert developer, but show me what's new in this version. Don't teach me how to do basic stuff. That's really cool.
I like that idea of, how to build websites, how to build and do some things with .NET, but let's just go back to the basics and make sure that we didn't miss some things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Jeff, I don't know if you're like me. When I start reading documentation about how to get started with something, I kind of ignore and forget the things that don't apply to what I'm just trying to do right now.
Yeah.
Consequently, I think I'm an expert after building one or two applications. And I look back and it's like, oh, crumbs, I skipped that thing. And I should really go back and it might make this easier next time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's
So
always new things.
yeah, so you're right. That type of callback is always valuable to us.
Yeah. Yeah. The entity framework session it didn't call it like that, but it was very much presented for seasoned people. And
Yeah.
for example, like the document JSON storage, SQL servers supported that for a long time, but now entity framework is, making that a first class citizen, which unlocks a whole new set of scenarios for document type storage, but on top of SQL Server. So
Yeah.
that was interesting too for people they've been slinging data for years and years and years.
Right. And I think about folks who more or less took their unstructured data and said, you know what? I'm going to put the structured data in SQL Server. I'm going to take this unstructured data and I'm going to throw it into a MongoDB or a Cosmos DB or a Raven DB that NoSQL storage, so I could take advantage of some of the ways that I could query that with that key value pair. Well, you're going to get the same SQL Server performance and the entity framework hookup to be able to search through that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
as well as deserialize automatically with entity framework. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Now you do. I think your position as executive director of .NET Conf, like right in your sweet spot, because you do so much teaching and content anyway. One thing that you don't say with your content, but I kind of infer, is the types of programming on your Twitch channel is things that people can do now. And so .NET Aspire, other things, it's okay, watch for the future. You can play around with some of the bits, but something's not ready. But the things that we find you doing on your channel are the things like, oh yeah, you can do it now. It's totally ready. It's totally stable. It works. Here we go. And so even without you saying it, people can just watch. I would encourage people to watch your other content if they have any questions about which of the new stuff are really ready to bet on. Well, yeah. You're demonstrating that because you're building it. I don't know whether you think about it like that or not.
I absolutely do. I got into a spot when I was first working with Blazor and Azure Static websites where there were features that I was trying to use that weren't quite baked yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was real frustrating. Got me very angry, and I had to back off and rework ways to get around. And I ended up on a couple phone calls with the product team, and they're saying, yeah, sorry, it doesn't work like that. So I ended up standing up other applications, other app services to handle these gaps that you just couldn't do
Mm-hmm.
with the tech that was available. And to exactly your point, I've backed off on a bit of the bleeding edge types of things and focused on not just this is something you can do right now, but I want you to download the code. I want you to try it out. I want you to go to the website or the application that we've built and deployed, download it, try it out, visit it, tinker with it. Let me know what you think. When it comes time for the boss to say, hey, what'd you learn from watching Fritz, or do you have an idea for the new architecture, new thing we should try? You can actually point to something and say, take a look at this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing to have that eShop sample that we relaunched again during the keynote of .NET Conf. Everybody can relate to a storefront. It's got those classic objects that we can all reference. We all understand orders and products and customers and addresses. We all know how that works. And it's a good reference application. But going just a little bit further outside that box, that's what I like to show folks, and pushing things in a way that gets folks interested and gets them into something that they can relate to. And that aha moment that happens. Yeah, I really enjoy doing that.
Yeah, and you're good at it too. You're just a good teacher. Explain things well. And each individual product team explains things because they're so deep into that particular product. But by not just promoting it, but actually continuing to build software and mixing it all together, you have offer good cross-cutting suggestions.
That perspective, right? That customer perspective.
Yeah.
Let me pull all these things together. Totally agreed.
Yeah. So as we wrap up here and we're kind of doing our .NET Conf recap, what have we not said? What do people need to do next?
Go get yourself a copy of .NET 8. Real easy to do. Go to get.net and you'll see it there. It's the recommended download on the website. It's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Take a look at installing the latest preview version of Visual Studio. The preview version comes with the bits for .NET Aspire. I want you to check it out. I know everybody at some point is building an application or a service, something that you're going to run on a server. It might be on an Azure server. It might be on an AWS server. It might be on a server in your own in your own data center. That's okay. Take a look at how these pieces fit together. Get some idea of it, because the team is taking a ton of feedback right now. They're very active on GitHub, triaging issues, looking at the various questions that folks have. For anybody that needs to manage an application that's going to be around for more than just a few months, years, you want to take a look at what comes in the box with Aspire, because some of those features that you might have just pushed aside and said, you know what, I don't really need tracing. I don't really need logging. I can buy a service to bolt on that'll do that for me later, or it's not an issue right now. We can add that in when the application becomes more complex. The fact that Aspire gives that to you out of the box, pre-configured, with a really nice dashboard to make it easy for developers to get started and join your team as valid and valuable contributors on day one is something that we think is going to be tremendously valuable in a space that folks in other frameworks, other languages just haven't explored yet.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned lots of other people are doing .NET recaps at their user group and other local events afterwards. If someone's hearing it and they realize, hey, there's not one near me, but I could facilitate it if I was just equipped, how could they get the resources and materials to, if they have, their own gather, even if they pull some people together over lunch, where can they get the local event materials?
Here we go. So if you go to netconf.net/local-events, just go to the website and click the local events up at the top. There's a box right at the top. Host a .NET community event, and there's a link for an event in a box. Click through to that, and there's all kinds of materials there that'll get you graphics, get you slides and content from the event, so that you can click through and find what kinds of material you might want to present. You might want some of your team in your local area to talk about. Even if you work for an enterprise, you work for a large company, and you don't want to send everybody down to the local Starbucks where the user group is meeting up, and you just want to do something to train your team. Hey, talk to the boss, get a couple boxes of pizzas brought in, and you want to watch a couple sessions and learn together. Check out the event in a box, grab some of that content. You can even dial up the video from .NET Conf, watch it together, discuss afterwards. We want to make this real easy for folks to get in and learn more about .NET. So check out the event in a box.
Yeah, I really like it that you actually share the PowerPoint files that the presenters are showing. In the last architect forum that I did actually just last week, I was able to cherry pick some of the slides from several of the presentations and kind of do an architect level recap of the big events. It was just super handy.
That's a great idea.
Instead of having to screen grab.
And let's also not forget, there's an accessibility avenue to that as well, right? When we do make slides available for folks who might not be able to hear the speaker, might not be able to see, they can bring those slides down locally and wire up and use all the accessibility features in PowerPoint so that they can know a little bit more what's going on and they can participate better.
Yeah. Well, great job. I enjoyed it. My teams enjoyed it. So, thanks for recapping .NET Conf. It's been a good year for .NET.
Oh my gosh, yes. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And until next time, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure DevOps Podcast, a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Go to www.azuredevops.show for show notes and other episodes. On behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, and our sponsors, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.